Tonight's story sounds impossible, and honestly, if there weren't a single, physical thread of evidence to prove it happened, most people would assume it was completely made up. Because this isn't just a mystery, it's a story about a phone call that arrived nearly 24 hours before it was ever made. And the person who received it would later realize the voice on the other end was trying to save their life. In October of 2018, a man named Daniel Harper moved into a quiet apartment complex just outside Denver, Colorado. Daniel was the kind of person neighbors barely noticed. He worked remotely as a software analyst, rarely went out, and preferred predictable routines. Same coffee every morning, same evening walk, same silence, which is why the first strange thing that happened stood out immediately. At exactly 2:13 a.m., Daniel's phone rang. Not a subtle vibrate, not a gentle notification chime. It rang. The sound echoed through his dark apartment like it didn't belong there. Half asleep, Daniel reached over, the blue light of the screen illuminating his tired face. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, the 2:13 a.m. timestamp stinging his eyes. But something felt urgent, a weight. So he answered, and for several seconds, nobody spoke. Just faint, low-level static, like an open connection in an empty room. Then breathing, slow, uneven, disturbed breathing. Daniel sat bolt upright in bed, the cold sweat now distinct. Hello. The breathing stopped, and then a voice whispered, Daniel, listen carefully. The voice sounded distorted, like a bad connection, or maybe just incredibly weak. But what froze him wasn't the sound quality. It was the realization that vibrated in his own throat. The voice on the other end sounded exactly like his own. Not just similar, an identical echo. For a moment, all he could do was breathe, shock superseding any irritation. He tried a shaky laugh. What? Is this some kind of prank? But then the voice said something that erased any idea of a joke instantly. Tomorrow night, don't go outside at 9:40. Static crackled louder, filling the void between them. Then the voice rushed its words, desperate now. You won't get another warning. And the call ended. Daniel checked the call log immediately. No number saved. No location. Just an incoming call lasting 43 seconds. He shrugged it off, trying to force the rational thought. Probably a scam. Someone messing around with an advanced voice filter. But by morning, the sound of his own desperate whisper was impossible to forget. The next day passed with an agonizing slowness. Work emails felt meaningless. Lunch at his desk went untasted. An evening rainstorm arrived, tapping relentlessly against the windows. By nightfall, Daniel felt more restless than he had in years. And that's when his routine, that predictable routine he lived by, asserted its dominance. At 9:35 p.m., he decided to go for a walk, exactly like he always did. It was the only rational act in an irrational day. He grabbed his jacket, checked his phone one last time, and that's when he noticed something utterly impossible. A missed call notification buried, timestamp to 13 a.m. But the date, it was listed as October 18th. Daniel stared at the screen, his mind struggling to process the data. The date hadn't happened yet. Right now, it was October 17th. The future date was mocking him. He refreshed the phone. The notification stayed, October 18th, 2:13 a.m. And suddenly, he remembered the warning. Don't go outside at 9:40. At 9:39 p.m., Daniel stood by his apartment door, hand on the handle, ready to prove the logic was right. But his heart was beating faster than it should. His muscles tensed. He was a software analyst, logic ruled. So instead of opening the door, he waited, just to prove one thing, that nothing would happen. 9:40 p.m. arrived. Silence. The rain tapped against the glass. Then, a deafening crash exploded outside. Metal screamed against concrete, a symphony of destruction. People shouted. Car alarms erupted all at once. A collective panic. Daniel flung open the door. All logical thought vanished, and ran into the hallway. Outside, a speeding truck, its driver unable to control it in the rain, had slammed directly into the sidewalk, exactly where Daniel walked every single night. Police later confirmed the driver never even touched the brakes. If Daniel had followed his routine, if he had opened that door, he would have been standing there, shaken, his body physically trembling. Daniel rushed back inside. His phone buzzed again. Another unknown call. His eyes darted to the screen. Same timestamp. 2:13 a.m. Hands trembling. His software logic shattered, he answered. Static filled the line. Then his own voice spoke again. This time weaker. Relieved, devastated. You listened, Daniel whispered, his voice cracking. Who? Who are you? A long pause. The static was almost deafening. Then the answer. I'm you, tomorrow. The connection began breaking apart completely. You have to understand. This only works once. Daniel tried to speak, but the signal faded, swallowed by the future it tried to save him from. Before the call ended, the voice did one last thing. Next time, I might not make it. And the line went dead forever. Daniel never received another call. Phone records later showed something that the carrier said was impossible, according to them. No incoming call had ever connected to his device that night. Not one. Yet Daniel still keeps the screenshot of that missed call. The physical, digital proof, dated one day in the future. And to this day, he says one thing bothers him more than anything else. If that voice really was him, then somewhere, sometime, something must have happened. A future so dark that made him desperate enough to try calling his own past. Desperate enough to warn himself to survive, so he would have to face it later.